Welcome to the new era of garbage. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to be doing a video basically discussing the fact that the new era, quote unquote, or the Triple H era, the Paul Levesque era, whatever you want to call it. I call it the jobber era, you know what I'm saying? This new era that WWE has coined the term for has been a failure. From top to bottom, there's no real way that you can look at the last year and a half Triple H has been booking and genuinely say that it has been a success. Now, comparatively speaking to what was happening in 2018 and, a little bit of 2017, obviously, and then 2019, 2020, the COVID era, whatever, even though there were still some decent parts in that, obviously, while Vince McMahon was booking, there was a lot of garbage in there as well, of course. Now, if you compare it to that time period, obviously, you can say that this is a big boom because, yeah, the content now is better than 2018 to 2020 or 2021. Sure. But the fact is that in totality, it's easy to go up from the ground. You can't get any lower than the ground level. You know what I'm saying? If you're already at rock bottom in 2019, anything above that is going to be considered a big boom. So if you're doing better than you were 4 or 5 years ago, that's great. But what are you doing greatly? You see what I'm saying? You're doing better than horrible, but you're not doing great. So the idea of this big boom in general is just an absolute lie and an over-exaggeration. Are they better than they were in the closing parts of the 2010s and in the COVID pandemic era? Sure, but does that mean that this is a big boom and this is the quote-unquote greatest era of professional wrestling? Stop the nonsense, man. We're going to go ahead and break down all the promises of the new era that Triple H gave to us, like him saying this was going to be a big boom, you know what I'm saying, which is that's just an absolute joke. Him saying that there was a new way of storytelling with a long-term booking and, a new wave of talent, actually, that was promised. A new wave of champions, fighting champions, which we're going to discuss that. And then, obviously, one of the biggest promises of the new era was simply the fact that everyone, included with WWE, promised you that backstage, on camera, storytelling-wise, in-ring-wise, that this was not only going to be one of the greatest eras of all time, as Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre and all these other people say, but they also said that, they didn't say this word for word, but obviously everyone who's working at WWE implies that this era was going to be better than the eras of Vince McMahon's booking in the past. So, let's go ahead and talk about that. Number one, let's address the big boom comments, obviously. As I've already mentioned, this is just an absolute lie. There is nothing that's happening right now that equates to there being a quote-unquote big boom in professional wrestling. Now, the fact is that, yes, there's more viewership now, I guess, to an extent, than there was maybe in 2019, I guess you could say. And the quality now, obviously, is better than WWE had in 2018, 2019 in the pandemic era in the beginning. Even though there were some good things in the pandemic era, Tribal Chief Roman, Drew McIntyre, Bobby Lashley was doing good work, Randy Orton was doing solid heel work as well, things of that nature. But I get where people are coming from when they say, yeah, it's better than, the stuff we had. But the fact is, with the big boom, quote unquote, comparatively speaking to any other era of professional wrestling, this era is not booming in anything. You have a bunch of sponsors now, which is great. Don't get me wrong. The Prime stuff, all these other companies are bringing in a bunch of money. But let's just look at the statistics. In 2000s, right, and even in the Attitude Era, the late 90s and stuff like that, wrestling used to get 7 to 8 million views on a weekly basis, at least on Raw, and SmackDown was within a couple million of that rating. Do you see what I'm saying? How is it possible that wrestling used to rival the Monday Night Football in terms of viewership week to week? You know what I'm saying? And now all of a sudden, WWE Raw doesn't get 1/5 of the viewership or 1/6 of the viewership that Monday Night Football gets on average anymore. Do you see what I mean? The absolute lie that's going on in the over-exaggeration is egregious. If you compare this era of wrestling in terms of its viewership and notoriety and mainstream appeal to back in the days of the early 2010s and the 2000s as a whole, when you would go to school and you'd see a bunch of people walking around wearing their WWE merch, wearing WWE shirts. Do you see anyone that walking around today wearing Cody Rhodes merch? Wearing Gunther merch? Do you see what I'm saying? No one walks around wearing this stuff anymore because it's not mainstream and it's not cool. It just isn't. Gunther is not cool. Cody Rhodes' character is not cool. It just isn't anymore. Wrestling is not as mainstream as it once was, and we're all seeing it by the viewership numbers. If you used to draw 7 to 8 million views on Raw, and you used to draw 5 to 6 million views on SmackDown week to week, how in the world now are you struggling to get 1.5 million viewers on SmackDown, and then when you move to Netflix, which is again in front of the whole entire world, and you're struggling to pull in 3 million views? Are you kidding me? You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole world has access to it, and only 3 to 4 million people are choosing to watch it. Back then, on cable, you would get 8 million people choosing to watch it, and it wasn't even open to the entire world, per se. At least at that time period. So the excuses, they're running out. And then you have the stuff with viewership, like I already discussed, the pay-per-views. This is something interesting that I just realized, right, a couple days ago, and that I've been thinking about. If you really think about it, right, WWE, when they're pay-per-views, this is like the OG stuff, you know what I'm saying? WWE's pay-per-views, that actually, when they used to charge like 60 to 70 bucks per pay-per-view, you know, for every month, once every month for their pay-per-views, everyone, like 2 or 3 million people minimum, maybe 4 million, I got to go look it up. It's at least 3 million, though. I know that for a fact. I saw those numbers. At least 3 million people on average were spending 60 to 70 bucks per pay-per-view to watch the show. Nowadays, you're struggling to barely get 1.5 million people to watch it on cable, you know, on SmackDown, for basically nothing in comparison. Do you see what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. How is it possible that more people used to spend 70 bucks per pay-per-view to watch the show than you have now, where people can just turn it on TV and watch it for free? You know? It doesn't make any sense. You know, it's absolutely asinine at this point. A Hulu TV subscription, I think, is like 15 bucks or like 20 bucks. All you got to do is pay that, and you can watch Raw and SmackDown, you know what I'm saying? Or you can watch Raw or SmackDown, at least you could, on cable. But even before they switched to Netflix, the viewership wasn't even close. Back then, you could get people in droves, 3 or 4 million people spending $70 to watch the show. If you had to charge now 70 bucks for people to watch these shows, no one would be watching wrestling on the PLEs at all. No one will be watching that garbage. So that lets you know everything you need to know. More people back then would rather spend money to watch the product, and now people get it for much less, and they're still not watching it as much proportionally. It's that simple. The numbers are right in front of your face. Then you also have the fact that SmackDown, for example, and Raw are simply not good. The big boom period basically means that Raw and SmackDown are doing things that have never been done before. This is a massive increase, a massive payload money, you know, a massive amount of money increase, a massive amount of notoriety. And it's obviously all a lie. The Triple H era, the Paul Levesque era, is built on lies. And the next point we have to discuss is the long-term booking. Triple H and everyone basically promised, because this is the thing, nobody outright says for sure, like, well, actually, no, they do. I mean, Cody Rhodes, you know, Rhea Ripley, Gunther, all these people are all promising that this era is amazing and all these other great things about it. But the truth is, the booking is atrocious. Everyone wants to bash on Vince McMahon and what he did in the past, but the fact is, Vince McMahon in his booking prime, which again, everyone already says Triple H is a better booker than Vince McMahon, so let's compare Vince McMahon to Triple H. Vince McMahon is a better booker than Triple H in totality. Obviously, Vince has been around for much longer, but the fact is, when Vince was in his prime in like the Attitude Era, you can take the 2000s, you can take the mid to early 2010s, and you can clearly tell that for the most part throughout that entire 30-year span, this dude's booking is better than Triple H's. It's not even close. There's nothing that Triple H has done that makes you think, oh, wow, this dude's way better than Vince. No, he's not. Vince McMahon, number one, knew how to build new stars, which we're going to talk about in a second. He built new stars. He built mega stars. He built first ballot Hall of Famers, and he built memorable and most engaging storylines in the history of the company. Just think about it. Rock and Austin. Rock and Hogan, you know what I'm saying? Taker and Shawn Michaels, the summer of CM Punk, The Rock and John Cena. All of these storylines, and there's many more. Orton and Triple H had a phenomenal story. John Cena had great stories with Batista that were underrated. You know what I mean? Jeff Hardy had really good feuds with CM Punk. You know, Undertaker had a solid feud with CM Punk multiple times. Things like that occurred. And I'm just now realizing something. All those great stories I just named from Vince's totality as a booker, heck, even the Authority storyline, I forgot to mention, that's one of my favorite storylines he's ever done, actually. I thought that was really good. It was a good mid to long-term booking thing with the epic conclusion of Dolph Ziggler doing that clutch up at Survivor Series 2014. But anyways, what amazing stories has Triple H really captivated or cultivated in the last year and a half, 2 years that he's been the head booker of WWE? Genuinely think about that for a second. The Rock, who is a part-timer who's been in the business for like 30 years at this point, came back last year and did a great story build-up for Cody for Mania 40. Cool. Roman and Paul Heyman helped build up, the Cody feud for Mania 39. Cool. CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. Good feud. I mean, the first 3 or 4 months of it, CM Punk couldn't even wrestle, so that was kind of that. But the feud ended up being pretty good in totality. But outside of that, again, these feuds are all carried by like part-timers who are long tenured in the business, like Roman, Heyman, Rock, and then CM Punk, who had just come back at late 2023. Outside of those stories, what great or amazing stories has there been in the last year and a half or a year that he's been in charge? What has he done? Like, seriously. What great or amazing, wow, man, this is the pinnacle. You know, like Rock and Cena is a pinnacle story. Roman and Cody, pinnacle. Rock and Cody, all that stuff, pinnacle. Punk and McIntyre, very good. But outside of that, what are we looking at here? What amazing feuds? Damian Priest and Finn Balor? Nia Jax and Bayley? Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley, which died after 1 month? Really? You know what I'm saying? There's nothing, there's really nothing when you think about it. Nothing notable, at least. Maybe I'm forgetting something, but I genuinely couldn't think of nothing. Like, think about this as well. The only great stories of the last year and a half, 2 years Triple H has been in full charge of the booking have been really cultivated and captivated by stars that were built by Vince in his era. Like CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, who was the chosen one by Vince McMahon, Roman Reigns, obviously. Tribal Chief was originated during Vince's booking, and then obviously The Rock, you know? But outside of those people, and even, like, what has this dude done? What has Triple H done? What has he built? You know, we saw what he's got with his new stars that he chooses, like Cody Rhodes. Look at Cody Rhodes' championship reign. Do you like it better than Roman's? Do you like it better than Punk's 1 year reign? Absolutely not. Great heels, for example, Chris Jericho, The Rock when he did the Hollywood Rock, you know, Hollywood Hogan, all that other stuff, you know. The good heel work of his era was absolutely insurmountable in comparison to the heels of this current era. The only heels in the last like 4 or 5 years that are going to go down as truly memorable or all-time great in the conversation with people like Jericho or people like, you know, in Kane or something like that, or even, you know, what's his name, bro, freaking Edge, you know, people of that nature. Even The Miz in his prime was a great heel. People like that are the only people who are going to go down in those conversations is the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns run of the last 5 years. That's it. And maybe Drew McIntyre's recent run over the last year, but that's pushing it. Roman Reigns will go down as the Tribal Chief run as a great heel all-time, great run. But outside of that, nothing's coming close. This new era, quote-unquote, of amazing booking is just a lie. It really is. Triple H now is in the mindset of sacrificing 6 to 8 months of television for 1 to 2 great moments that get a poor follow-up. Just think about what's taken place over the last year and a half. We had the elongated New Day storyline, which was like a year long. New Day kept losing matches. They would have the same segments. You know, how do we move on from this? How do we win matches? We have to get this right. We have to fix this. We're not in cahoots right now. And then, what's it called? Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston down the stretch of the storyline the last few months. They're at odds with each other. They're arguing. We get a great promo segment with them backstage where they're roasting and going at each other, you know, hitting where it hurts. And then the following week, we have the segment with Big E and the New Day and, you know, Kofi and Xavier. It was absolutely phenomenal. One of the best heel turns of all time. But what has happened since that heel turn that took place nearly 2 months ago? Do you see what I'm saying? Nothing has happened. Nothing has come from this. They haven't done anything new, engaging, or exciting, or really generational since that generational heel turn moment. You see, we get 8 months of build-up for one great moment that has no follow-up. So what's the point of that booking? You know, it makes no sense. Rhea and Liv Morgan, this storyline was piping hot during the summer. You know what I'm saying? We had 3 months of just straight buildup of Liv Morgan being champion. Rhea comes back in the fray. The build to SummerSlam is actually very good. Dominic Mysterio does a double heel turn at SummerSlam, and you have that. But then going forward, how in the world are we in a situation now where Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan had fallen off the face of the earth way before Rhea won that championship back a couple weeks ago? Before she took back a title that she never lost, the storyline was dead and nobody cared about it. We wasted 7 or 8 months of this storyline, and 4 of the months were simply boring and repetitive and garbage just to get Rhea Ripley winning, and we already knew she was going to predictably win the feud anyways. You see what I mean? 8 months wasted for a poor payoff and a poor follow-up. Rhea Ripley, since she won that belt 2 or 3 weeks ago, has done nothing. She hasn't even cut a promo, at least any good promos, and on top of that, she hasn't wrestled at all. And she's going to wrestle this Saturday versus Nia Jax and win a predictable match, which again makes no sense because Nia Jax just got embarrassed, turned on by Tiffany Stratton, and disrespected, and she's going over to Raw to go fight for the World Championship instead. Why not go feud for the title that you just lost by Tiffany? You know, it doesn't make any sense, but that's what we got. Cody Rhodes. This dude has a whole 2-year build-up to finish the story. And then he finally wins the championship from Roman Reigns at Mania 40. Epic moment. Amazing night. Amazing moment. But now the follow-up of it has been one of the worst WWE championship reigns of all time. So what's the point of this? Triple H is apparently a way better booker than Vince McMahon, yet every single thing that he's done has had an awful follow-up. All the massive moments you can think of have gone nowhere. Cody won the championship after 2 years of build-up. To do what? To fight Logan Paul at King of the Ring? To fight Solo Sikoa in a mid-match at SummerSlam? To have 6 title defenses in 250 days? Are you kidding me? That's what we spent 2 years building up? Gunther's Intercontinental Championship reign ends after 2 years for Sami Zayn to lose it in 3 months in a mid-series and a mid-feud with Braun Breaker? Really? All this 1.5, 2-year build-up for moments that seem great when they happen, but have poor follow-up. So that alone lets you know that Triple H is full of booking monotonous and boring storylines with boring shows and awful championship reigns. What great championship reigns have we had over the last year? Seriously, ask yourself that question. What championship reigns have we had that started over the last year or so, year and a half, and have genuinely been great from start to finish? It hasn't happened. It does not happen under Triple H. It doesn't. Every championship reign is the same thing. The wrestler either comes out in a suit or in an outfit, cuts a promo, says absolute nonsense, gets interrupted, gets out-dueled on the mic by whoever they're talking to, and then they come out the next week and do the same thing. And they do the same thing after that. Rhea Ripley comes out. Mommy's on top. I'm going to take back my title that I never lost. Yeah. Drew McIntyre wins the World Championship for 5 minutes. And of course, he can't stop thinking about Punk. And then Cody Rhodes comes out. I respect the hill, I love the hill, and I have libations in my pocket, but the problem is I cannot cut a promo because of the Modelo and the Wheatley in my back pocket. Like, dude, what are you talking about? All these promos are annoying and boring. Gunther comes out in a suit as usual, doesn't wrestle at all during this championship reign, even though he's a quote-unquote workhorse, and of course, he doesn't wrestle, and he comes out in the ring and cuts bad promos. The promo he had on Raw last night, you can clearly tell that, like I said in the review, the crowd was not reacting to anything this dude was saying. He's a heel world champion and has no heat, and he's not over as a super heel. He doesn't get booed out of the building, he doesn't get cheered out of the building, he's in a mid-spot with a mid-reaction. He gets a worse reaction than Jimmy Uso and Sami Zayn, who are mid-carders who will never win any world championship gold as single stars. So stop the nonsense, you know? Are we really going to sit here and literally be honest with ourselves and say that 6 months of repetitive booking and repetitive storyline moments for one great moment that has no follow-up is good booking? Because that's all Triple H has done for 70 to 80% of his time booking. And it's facts, you know? So again, and even with the inconsistent booking and the repetitive matches, every single week, you're getting the same collection of wrestlers wrestling every single week. For example, on SmackDown, like I've been saying, you get DIY and Motor City Machine Guns fighting, or Motor City Machine Guns and Pretty Deadly, or Pretty Deadly and DIY, or you get a situation where it's Nia Jax versus Bayley, which now on Raw, we got Nia Jax versus Bayley, or Nia Jax and Candice versus Bayley and Naomi, Nia Jax versus Naomi, Nia Jax versus Naomi, Nia Jax versus Naomi, Candice LeRae versus Naomi, Candice LeRae versus Bianca Belair, Nia Jax versus Bianca Belair. It's the same matches. It's the same collection of matches on SmackDown. And then on Raw, it's the same thing. The Judgment Day, same backstage segment, same match versus Damian Priest, some collection of them versus Damian Priest, or they're fighting and fighting versus some other random tag team that nobody cares about or that doesn't even exist anymore. The stuff with the Wyatt Six. I predicted when they debuted, they were going to be jobbers who would be off of the show and not even on the show consistently within 2 months. And lo and behold, what happened? Exactly. It's very simple stuff. I don't know why everyone is pretending like this booking is so incredible and it's so amazing. Rhea Ripley has 3 or 4 Raw matches in the last 400 days. Are you serious? And we're sitting here praising this garbage? Cody Rhodes has, 5 SmackDown matches in 1 year? And we're out here praising this? This is embarrassing. Your stars aren't wrestling. You're having bad repetitive stories, and the long-form storytelling and booking stuff has been a disaster. And then on to the next point, the promise of new wave of talent. No one is new that is talented. Do you understand what I'm saying? Braun Breaker is new and he's talented. Great. But what has he done? He's been relegated to not being on the show for 5 weeks at a time, and he's going to wrestle Sheamus this weekend. It's his first match defending the Intercontinental Championship in like 8 weeks. So what does that matter? He's in the prime of his career in his 20s. He's athletic. He can cut promos. He's got great talent, but he's not on the show. So why does it matter? Tiffany Stratton, she wins the championship, cuts bad promos, and wrestles mid-matches like her match versus Bayley last Friday, and that's that. There's nothing to speak of. There's no new stars. There's no new talent to look forward to. And that is why when guys like Roman Reigns or Cena or, even CM Punk, of course, people like that don't show up week to week or are not wrestling week to week or aren't doing anything, it makes the show boring because there's nothing to look forward to anymore. You know what I'm saying? There's no new talent that's coming up where you're like, wow, this is going to be this next generation Cena, or this is the next Roman Reigns, or this is even the next Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is not to the extent of Roman Reigns or even, John Cena's way beyond his pay grade, obviously. But the point is that Seth Rollins is a great star for the generation. He's respectable, he's up there in the talent levels, and he's consistent. They don't even have anyone who's coming up who looks like they can be a Seth Rollins. So how in the world are you even looking forward to having someone who can be on the level of a Roman or a Cena or a Rock or an Austin eventually? It's not going to happen anytime soon, and we're seeing it. Gunther's supposed to be this new talent with this world title reign, and he's this and he's that. He hasn't done anything with the belt. The belt is meaningless. The World Championship used to sometimes be more important than the WWE Championship when you had people like Taker, Batista, Edge holding it, etc. Now the World Championship means absolutely nothing, and it's defended once every 8 weeks. So who cares? There's no new wave of talent. I'm sick of hearing about how stacked the divisions are because it's all a farce. The Triple H propaganda of the quote-unquote new era, this is the last point I need to bring up, the whole farce of a new era is an absolute lie. That is the problem with this entire thing. Triple H and WWE, their stars like Cody and Rhea and Drew McIntyre and even Rollins and Punk, all these people have all lied to you guys. This isn't a new era. It's better than stuff that was horrendous like 6 or 7 years ago, sure. But is this a great era comparatively speaking to any other era? Absolutely not. They lie to you every week. Think about it for yourself, right? The Workhorse Champion lies. Absolute farce. Nobody actually believes that Gunther and Cody are fighting champions because they're not fighting. Cody Rhodes wrestles a meaningless 10-minute match like 3 weeks ago with Jimmy Uso versus Jacob Fatu and Solo Sikoa. No one cares about that garbage. It's meaningless. Cody's wrestled maybe 6 SmackDown matches in like 9 or 10 months. What am I supposed to do with that? That's nothing. 6 title defenses in 250 days? Or 300 days dang near? Really? Gunther has what, 4 or 5 title defenses in 6 months? Come on, man. What are we doing? They're not wrestling. They're telling you they're workhorses, but nothing in front of your face is actually showing you that they're workhorses. Back in the day, when Cena and Orton and all these people are defending their championships on a week-to-week or at least 2 or 3 times a month basis, and while doing live events, how in the world are they able to do all of that? And wrestlers now can't even wrestle once or twice a month on TV. They can't even wrestle once. You can't even ask Rhea Ripley to wrestle more than 3 times in a year. You can't even do that anymore, But apparently everyone's a workhorse, but they're not wrestling. You have the lie of the fact that this is some sort of big boom and wrestling is so mainstream again. It's not. It used to be much more mainstream than it is now, and everybody knows that. The numbers show it, the mainstream appeal shows it, and if you just go outside and go ask someone about these things, no one cares about the product anymore, at least on a mainstream level. And everybody knows that. The third biggest lie that they've been telling you guys during this entire thing is the simple fact that they're bringing in a new wave of storytelling that's going to be incredible, and it's like nothing you've never seen before. Yeah, you're right. I've never seen anything this bad before. Good point, Hunter. A new wave of talent, but yet no new stars are being produced. The roster is as stacked as it's ever been. That's another lie. The roster is not as stacked as it's ever been. How is a roster with Batista, Edge, Cena, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, all these other people, Chris Jericho, Kane, you know what I'm saying? The list goes on and on and on. How in the world is a roster with people like that, not even mentioning people like your CM Punk who was in his prime, Jeff Hardy, of course, right? All of those kind of people, and you're telling me that an era where you have Roman Reigns, who's a part-timer, and he's probably going to be out of the company in 5 years, going to retire probably, Seth Rollins, who again is getting older, CM Punk, who's dang near 50, Randy Orton, who's not even there right now, John Cena, who's another super part-timer, who's in his last year with the company, right? And you have no one who's in their prime and who is actually great. Everyone who I just named in the 2000s and the Attitude Era, kind of, bridging over like The Rock, Stone Cold, you know what I'm saying? People like that. Those kind of people were all in their prime when WWE was at their boom. You can't be in a prime big boom period when Roman Reigns, yeah, he was in his prime. Seth Rollins, yeah, he was in his semi-prime, right? Drew McIntyre, yeah, he's in his prime. But none of those people are on the level of John Cena, The Rock, Stone Cold, etc. Roman Reigns is the clear number 1 of this era, and then it's Seth Rollins, and then it's everybody else pretty much. And that's that. This era is not, or this roster is not that stacked. I'm tired of hearing that garbage, nonsensical lie. Who do you have who's below the age of 38, who's actually in their prime, and who is a true mainstream success and a main event level wrestler? Who do you have? Nobody. So stop telling me that the roster is the best it's ever been when everyone knows it's not. Are you kidding me? Compare the top 10 of the 2000s of the Attitude Era to this, and you're telling me it's close? Really? Take the 10 best of the 15-year span from the mid-90s to the late 2000s. Cena, Stone Cold, The Rock, right? What's it called? Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Randy Orton, Ric Flair. All of those 8 alone, you know what I'm saying? Even if you want to pop in a Hulk Hogan in there, you know what I'm saying? The NWO, all that stuff, Are you kidding me? Chris Jericho, Jeff Hardy, Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar. Compare that top 12 to what? Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre. Who else? Cody Rhodes, Gunther, LA Knight. Even though I love LA Knight, come on. It's an absolute lie. You can compare roster for roster and clearly be able to tell that the rosters were better in the past. But the fact is that if you continue to tell a lie over and over and over again, eventually people will start to believe it, whether it's true or not. That's how media works, and that's how society works. And WWE has taken advantage of that to continue to lie to the general public. I hope that things change and that the content does eventually become worthy of them saying that there's a big boom, even though there clearly really isn't a big boom. Now, at the end of the day, these are just the way that I feel about it, right? I think that WWE is lying on multiple accounts. I think the promises of the new era and the different aspects of the new era, quote unquote, have been atrocious. They just have been in my eyes. Things can change and things can get better, but the way things are tracking right now, it doesn't seem like a lot is going to really change, and we'll just have to see what happens going forward. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts on the quote-unquote new era, and if you think it's been a success or a failure. Let me know what your thoughts are on this video, and as always, I thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys all have a phenomenal day, and as usual, peace out, one love.